Hey there, everybody. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about, which you probably already guessed, we're going to talk about masks in Adobe After Effects. Masks are a great way to begin the layering process to add different dimension to your various motion designs. So let's go ahead and get started. Here I have a text of the word mask along with a layer that is locked, which is our background layer. You can make masks in a variety of different ways. One of the ways that we can start is playing either with the shape tool or the rectangle tool. Now, to do this, what we can do is we can actually click on either of these tools at the top toolbar to activate our mask. But one thing a lot of people do by mistake is they don't have their layer selected in which they want to mask. So when they click on, for instance, the rectangle tool and they draw a rectangle, all of a sudden a shape layer appears. Let me go ahead and hit delete on that. To get the mask to work appropriately, what you're going to want to do is highlight the text mask layer and then go to your rectangle tool. And when you drag that on top of things, you're going to notice that you've drawn a mask. And you'll see the little icon there that's a white square rectangle with a black dot. So anything that is in a mask, anything that is inside of our mask here is going to be revealed. Anything outside of that bounding box is going to be concealed. We also end up getting a mask attribute now under our layer. And if I hit the M key, and I can hit M a few different times, you're going to notice all the different attributes for the mask. So we have mask path, mask feather, mask opacity, and mask expansion. For instance, mask feather will do exactly that. It will kind of soften the mask as you go. Mask opacity will play with the opacity, and mask expansion will kind of pull it outside of the bounding box area as you see fit. We can also click on our individual mask points and reveal more or less of that actual mask. If I double click on a mask point, I can actually get a bounding box in which I can kind of expand that. Now, where these come in handy is if you're trying to animate your mask, and that's where mask path is going to come. If I go ahead and hit the keyframe for mask path and go up a few frames, I can manipulate either the individual points or double click and pull the entire bounding box outward to get an animated mask reveal. So if we're working toward kind of animating this mask backwards and forwards, so we'll go here, click on that mask again, and then maybe we'll kind of kill the mask there. And double click here and pull it all the way out. You can see we now have kind of, if I hit the space bar, a little bit of a floating mask, which is really nice. So masks can work in a lot of different ways. You can animate the mask path. If you want to delete a mask, you can hit delete. We can add multiple masks. So for instance, if we wanted to draw kind of a reveal of a text, we would go MM on our keyboard to get to mask path. Click here, double click, pull up our mask, and kind of reveal that text as we go. This is the first way to kind of play around with masks themselves. You can also add and invert masks. So if I wanted to draw multiple masks on the screen, I could do that and kind of have different variations of masks. As you can see, this one now hides what's in that specific area on top of it. So these are kind of just ways to kind of cookie cutter your mask. We can even invert that if we want to kind of mess with the two. And again, you can just simply hit delete on the mask to get rid of it as you see fit. The pen tool also creates masks. So I could just go and draw a mask here, as you can see, connect the dots, and that will give me access to some Beziers. And if I were to keyframe the mask path here, as you can see, I can actually move either the whole mask or I could highlight individual points within my mask using my selection tool here to animate individual mask points. And this is kind of like where you see people rotoscoping or cutting out different things for special effects. This is a great way to do that. So as you can see, I could kind of go through each individual point and move those as I see fit to kind of create a dynamic look to that mask. And again, if we want to get rid of our mask, we just hit the delete key and that mask will go away. Now, there are other ways to make masks as well. So if we want to turn text into a mask, we can do that too. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this watercolor on top of my word mask, which goes away. And I'm going to convert this text to individual mask layers. So I'm going to go to the layer key at the top, and I'm going to do create, and then create masks from text. Now when I do that, I'll get a series of masks outlines, and you can see all on their own layers. I can actually copy that and paste it onto my image, and in this case the image of the painting, and then you'll see that now all of those are nicely masked out. And if I can still go through and play with things like the feather, if I hit the F key to kind of soften that, we can kind of play around with that as we see fit. But there's other ways that we can kind of use different type of imagery to create masks, and this is using something called track maps. So we can actually use video or black and white or gray imagery to create the illusion of masks. So in this composition, I have a canvas, I have our watercolor painting, as you can see, and then I have kind of this splash of watercolor. So this is kind of a stock matte mask, which all of the black area I want to kind of turn into a mask, and instead of covering up the painting, I want it to reveal the painting underneath. So how do we do that? Well, in this case, we're going to use something called a track matte. And to do this, we're going to grab our watercolor layer, and then we're going to grab our painting, and we're going to go to the track matte layer here, as you can see here in the screen, track matte. If you don't have that layer, go to your bottom of your screen and hit the expand and collapse. And we're going to set this to be a matte of the watercolor movie. Now, at first glance, you may click on it and nothing happens, but what you're going to do is you're going to get a couple of different buttons in which you can see the different ways that it's distributed. So in my case, I'm going to switch mine to alpha matte, and sure enough, now we have this great reveal of this lovely matte here, which is really, really, really nice. So we have the ability to use different things, and you'll notice the eyeball is turned off, because if we turn the eyeball on, it's going to keep that black color. If I turn it off, it's just going to use that outline and that shape. And so let's go ahead. I have a few more here that we can kind of play with. We have kind of this water transition here, which is a little larger, as you can see. We would just set that to track matte, and then boom, you have a lovely transition using a track matte. We can even go as far as making this kind of spooky. So if I put this really kind of, not photorealistic, but as you can see, there's a lot of gray values. I can set this as the track matte, and if I go ahead and play with some of these settings, I can now switch this back to Luma Matte, which is going to take some of kind of the black and white setting and give me a nice opacity mask to kind of create some really fun effects to it. So track mattes are absolutely a great way to kind of get some really dynamic transitions in your artwork, and if you want to do some image reveals to kind of bring them to the next level. Hope you enjoyed this really introductory basic view of creating masks, and I look forward to seeing what you create with your masking tools. Thanks everybody.